Sebastian Junger, it's posted on National Review today. It's leading National Review, and it was so powerful and it was so good. And he was talking about, the true call of a journalist and what it actually means, and holding the powerful to account, just exactly as you've always done, Glenn, irrespective of party. You left your own media organization that you founded because they had lost the mission to, afflict the powerful, and however the saying goes. So Sebastian Junger, people may know him from authoring The Perfect Storm, which became a very popular movie. But he's a war correspondent. He's a journalist, and he covered the war in Afghanistan for 10 years, among other things. And he wrote this. I love this. Love this. A journalist is a person who is willing to destroy his own opinions with facts. A journalist is a person who is willing to report the truth, regardless of consequences, to herself or others. A journalist is a person who is focused on reality rather than outcome. I love that. And I'm not just saying that because he called me out in this piece by name favorably. I appreciated it. But a journalist is a person who is willing to destroy his own opinions with facts. There it is right there, Glenn. We've gotten so far afield of that in the mainstream.
Yeah, I remember, not to be super complimentary, but I think it was 2013 or 14 or something, when I was very much considered to be on the left. You were at Fox and people assumed you were on the right. And I remember Politico did a profile of you or some outlet like that. And they talked to me about it because I had recently seen an interview that you had conducted with a Republican conservative senator that was incredibly adversarial. And I said something like, you would never, ever see a Democratic Party politician interviewed this way on MSNBC or CNN. And if you go and look at the earliest writings that I would publish about Donald Trump's candidacy in 2015 and 2016, it was extremely negative. But in 2016 and mid-2016, when this narrative emerged of Russiagate, and for me, it was like a rejuvenation of McCarthyite, scripts from the CIA, like, what is Donald Trump and Moscow? What is this allegiance, this secret loyalty that Trump has to the Kremlin? I was repulsed by it, in part because it did resonate for me, this kind of 1950s attack on people's loyalties based on nothing. But also just as a journalist, from an evidentiary perspective, there was never any substantiation to these allegations that Trump had collaborated with or conspired with the Kremlin in the hacking of the DNC email and John Podesta's email, which was the central conspiracy that led to everything, let alone things like the Steele dossier. And it just offended me journalistically, that I would watch these leaks every day from the CIA and the FBI be trumpeted by the New York Times and the Washington Post, for which they showered themselves with Pulitzers, even though there was so clearly never any evidence to it. And so it just became, an obsession of mine to say that every day. And of course, the perception emerged, well, I must love Donald Trump. And think about what that perception says, that journalists can't, go against a certain narrative or question the evidentiary basis for it unless they somehow secretly love the party or the candidate that they're questioning helps. And for me, that was never the case. I was never a fan of Trump, to put that mildly. But at the same time, Russiagate, to me, was so journalistically offensive. And if you can't do that as a journalist, if you can't question a narrative that might be politically helpful for you, or reject one, or if you aren't willing to affirm a narrative that might be politically harmful to you, there's no point in calling yourself a journalist. You're just a political operative or an activist. That's the difference.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And there's just no interest whatsoever to hold the powerful to account anymore if it's their party. It's only Donald Trump. The journalists will be very, very quick to unfairly hold him to account for everything. But when it's their party, it's a different story. And it really, when we have, the possibility of wars breaking out, it's more important now than ever to not let party dictate your coverage, right? To not let your own political affiliations and desires prevent good coverage and objective coverage. This is one of the things Sebastian Junger was writing about in this piece, When Journalism Dies, on National Review. He was saying, when I was out there covering the Afghanistan war, he writes, my belief in the mission was complete. He was completely on our side. He thought it was just and so on. He was outraged after 9/11. He says, my belief in the mission, however, did not prevent me from calling out American missteps and failures. I was a journalist, after all, not a Pentagon press spokesperson. And he goes on from this, well worth everyone's time to give it a read. The pressure to conform to political correctness has undeniably suppressed genuine debate in this country, and it's time we put a stop to it. Enter Freedom 2.0, the unapologetic bottled water company that proudly supports the freedom to speak, freedom to think, and the freedom to listen. We can't afford to remain silent any longer. It's crucial to make our support for the First Amendment crystal clear. And one impactful way to do it is by choosing products from companies that champion our values. Visit freedom20, just the numeral 2 and then O, the letter, .com, freedom20.com, and use the code MK for a 15% discount to stand with yours truly and millions of other Americans in celebrating the right to free speech. Freedom is not inherited. It's something we must actively fight for. So raise your voice and grab your bottle of Freedom 2.0 and make a statement. Cheers to Freedom 2.0. That's Freedom 2.0, not Freedom 20, and champion the power of free speech. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.